Alrighty, so today's lesson we're working on complex trinomials. We're still factoring, all right? So still the end goal is to take what is this right here, this standard form equation, and put it into our brackets, our factors, all right? So the key difference between this lesson and the previous lesson is we're dealing with complex trinomials, all right? But what is a complex trinomial? Well, it's still a trinomial in the sense that it still has three terms, so ax squared plus bx plus c, but the key thing is that the a value here doesn't equal 1, right? It just adds an extra step when we're trying to move from standard into factored. In the previous lesson, we did see examples where a wasn't 1, but we were able to take it out, right? And we were able to factor it out to turn it into 1. But in order to do that, like let's look at this example right here, where a here is 2. Every single term here needed to be able to be factored by 2. But that's not the case right now with the 27. We can't take 2 out of that because that's not divisible by 2. And the same thing here. If we wanted to get rid of this 6 to make it a simple trinomial, well, that means this 7 and this 2 have to be divisible by 6. And again, not easily done. So these are examples of complex trinomials, because here, the a doesn't equal 1, and you can't take out a common factor. So there's no way to turn it into a simple trinomial. So what does that leave us? Well, the method to factor this, all right, and again, factoring, getting it into these brackets like that, right? That's our goal. Well, when we're factoring, we're going to use a method called decomposition. And if you think about the word decomposition, like decompose, all right? Well, the goal here is we are going to decompose this middle term, and that will make more sense of why we're doing that in a second, okay? But let's follow these 5 steps, all right? So you go in this order, and this is the process you're going to apply for every single complex trinomial that you are trying to factor. So step 1 tells us to take the product of a and c, and we're going to use this example right over here. So the product of a and c, 6 times 2, would give us positive 12. And step 2 says, okay, we'll take that product of a and c, write it as your equal sign, and then we need the b value. So here, this is our b, that's 7. So 7. Well, just like we did with simple trinomials, we are trying to find two numbers that multiply now to give us 12 and add up to 7. So go through your multiples of 12 and figure out which combination would give you positive 7. Well, you'd find that it's 4 and 3. 4 and 3. So the next part, step 3, is where this decomposition comes into play. You're breaking the middle term into 2 parts. All right, or in other words, decomposing. Decomposition. It's another way to easily remember it. So you're breaking the middle term into those 2 parts of the factors we just found. So this 7, really, let's write it as, actually, where it's right below us. That's 7 right here. Let's break it down into 3x and 4x. Notice how if you put them together, right, if you collect like terms, this is still 7x. You're not changing the equation at all, okay? That's a key thing. You can't change the expression, but you can't change it. You're just breaking it into 2 parts. And now, the reason we do that is because if we go to step 4, right, we can use something called factoring by grouping. So you group the first 2 and the last 2, and you take out a common factor, okay? So if I look at my first 2, which is a 6x squared and 3x, right? You factor by grouping, so put them in like a fake bracket like this, and ask yourself, well, what is my GCF between those 2 terms in that first bracket there? Well, in that case, it's 3x. And you would do the same thing for the other 2. And you say, okay, well, what is my GCF? Greatest common factor, okay? GCF, greatest common factor. Well, then you look here, and this is 2. So out of the first bracket, we can pull a 3x out of it. And then when we pull out factor, that means you are left with a 2x plus a 1. And then if you pull the GCF out of the second bracket, that 2 there, so plus 2, please include the plus 2, okay? Because you have to know the sign that you're pulling out. You'd be left with 2x plus 1. You know you have done this correctly if this bracket right here and this bracket right here are the same. Because like what we did with our simple trinomials, you can then pull out, step 5, common factor, the common bracket. So the common bracket there is that one I've underlined in yellow. So when I say common factor it out, well, you essentially are pulling it out of both terms. And so it becomes one of your factors, 2x plus 1. And then the other, all the things on the outside, this 3x here and this plus 2x, once you've factored out the 2x plus 1, they're just left alone and they are become your second factor. And there you go. That is in factor form. And again, if you were to check this, if you were to expand this and FOIL it, you would find that you get back exactly what you started with. You would get 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. If you don't believe me, give it a try yourself, okay? So let's do another example here. 5x squared plus 8x plus 3. So when you approach this on a test, what you want to ask yourself is, before you even go into this method, ideally you want to be doing simple trinomial because it just your life is so much easier. But in this case, we can't do that because I can't pull this 5, I can't turn it into a 1 by pulling it out of this or this. 8 or 3 are not divisible by 5. So that means we're going to use decomposition. So step 1 tells us take the 5, take the positive 3, multiply them. So we get positive 15. So we need two numbers that multiply to give us that positive 15. And then we need those same two numbers to add up, in this case, to give us 8, the middle term, 8 right here. So go through your multiples of 15, and you would find that your two multiples that would work would be 5 and 3. 5 and 3. So then the next step says, okay, well, once you found your two numbers that work, decompose this middle term into those two factors, the 5x plus the 3x. And then these numbers in the front and the back could just get carried along. So you're trying to get 4 terms here, okay? Notice we have 4 terms. The next step says group the first two and the last two. What is our GCF here? Well, our GCF here is 5. GCF is 5x. So let's pull that 5x out of that first bracket, and you'd be left with just an x plus 1. Look at the second bracket and say, what is my GCF here? Well, here, it's 3. So we'd pull a 3 out, and then you'd be left with just x plus 1. And again, you know you've done it correctly because your two brackets are the same. Sorry, not here, but are the same. So that means you're able to common factor the bracket out. And sorry, I forgot my equal signs. So this would be common factoring it out, right? X plus 1. Another way I like to think of it is one of your factors is the common bracket. The other factor is everything that you see on the outside. So everything I see on the outside is a 5x and a plus 3. There you go. That is factored form. So we've got lots of examples. We'll just keep going through it. Okay, at any point, pause the video and try some of these for yourself. And then, I'll keep going. and you can see if you've done it correctly, all right? Because once you got the pattern and the steps down, it's just going through them and following the process. So the next one, this is complex because A here, A does not equal 1. And I can't turn it into 1 by factoring that 2 out. So decomposition, take the 2 by the 3, you're going to get 6. So you need two numbers, multiply to give you 6. And those same two numbers have to add up to the middle term. And in this case, that's 5. So going through your multiples of 6, you would find that, all right, well, 2 and 3 are going to work. So 2 and 3. Decompose the middle term. So take this 5x, turn it into 2x plus 3x. Again, 2x plus 3x is still 5x when you collect your like terms. You're not changing it. And then you can't get rid of the 2x squared in front, and you can't get rid of the 3 in the back. Let me get rid of this. A can equal 1. All right. Next step, group. Group. And then ask yourself, what are your GCFs? Well, in this one right here, our GCF is 2x. So pull that 2x out of the brackets, and you're left with x plus 1. And then here, here you're left, or here you have GCF being 3. So you have to pull that 3 out. And then again, you're left with x plus 1. So your final answer is the common bracket. So the x plus 1 you see there. And then the other solution, or the other factor, is 2x plus 3. Everything that was on the outside. I'll make that a little bigger. So we have lots of examples. Let's keep going. 3x negative 2. So this time we're introducing a negative. All right, so keep that in mind that is now minus 2. So when you take these two numbers and you multiply them, you actually get minus 6. So when you're doing your math here, right, those numbers have to multiply to give you minus 6 now. And they add up to give you positive 5, the middle term. So as we did in the simple trinomial, the only way you can get a negative right here is if one of these numbers is positive and one of them is negative, because it's the only combination when a positive and a negative are multiplied together to get a negative. So go through your multiples of 6 and try and figure out a combination that works that would end up, when you add them, to get positive 5. Doing that, you would find that, all right, well, 6 and negative 1 works, because plus 6 and negative 1, and when you add negative 1, gives you positive 5. So decompose that middle term into those two parts right there. So this 5 becomes 6x minus x. All right, minus 1 x, like there's technically a 1 here, right? And then bring down the minus 2. And that 3x squared stays in front. Now do your grouping. And sorry, I forgot my equal signs. Do your grouping. Well, if I look here, my GCF is 3x. So I'm going to pull that 3x out of that bracket. That's 3x. And I'd be left with just x plus 2. All right, this one's a little harder. What is the GCF here? Again, you look at both the variable and the number. So you ask yourself, well, what is the biggest number? Because this one doesn't have a variable. So you're only looking at the numbers now. And you're saying, what is the biggest number that I can pull out? Well, in that case, the only thing that's common between this imaginary 1 that's right here, this invisible 1, the biggest number that's common between that 1 and that 2 is 1. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that this can't be negative here, okay? we can't have a negative inside of our factors. So when we pull it out, we're pulling out a -1. Our GCF here is -1. So remember, when you divide or factor out a -1, what ends up happening is all of the signs inside the bracket flip. So if that was -x, that is now just x. If that was -2, it is now just +2, because you've divided them by -1. So then your final answer is the common bracket, the x plus 2, and then everything on the outside, 3x minus 1. There you go. That is factored form. All right, so more negatives. So same process. And again, pause at any point, try it for yourself. Take the 2, take the -5, multiply them, so we get -10. Take those two numbers, all right? Two numbers have to multiply to give you -10, and those same two numbers have to add up to give you -9. So going through this, you'll see, go through your multiples of 10, and what combination would give you -9? Keep in mind that one of these has to be positive, one of them has to be negative. So the multiples of 10 that would work in this case would have to be +10 and -1. Oh, sorry, other way around. -10 and +1. So -10 and 1. And how did I know it was that way, not the first way I wrote it? Is because this is a negative number here. So the bigger number between these two, all right, the bigger number has to get the sign of whatever you see here. So in that case, that's why this is negative. All right, so decompose that middle term into the two factors you just found. So in that case, it's -10x plus 1x, so just plus x, -5. Group your first two and your second two. Look for your GCF. So what is my GCF here in this bracket? Well, in this case, my GCF is 2x. So pull a 2x out of the bracket, and you're going to be left with just x minus 2. Do the same for the second one. Look what your GCF is. Oh, sorry, not plus 2. 5. 5. And then pull your GCF out of here. And in this case, it's just +1, because you can't really do anything else. This x right here is already positive. There's no number here. And you can't pull the x out because this one doesn't have an x. So really, the biggest thing you can pull out, and you have to pull something out, is just 1. So nothing really changes in this bracket. It was already sort of in like the lowest form. So it becomes x minus 5. Pretty much staying the same. But notice how you have these common bracket. So your final answer then is everything on the outside. So everything on the outside is the 2x plus 1. And then the common bracket, the x minus the 5. So we have 2 more to go through, all right? And then we have all the homework that we'll do in class. So we're getting into some bigger numbers now, all right? But again, the process is still the same. Take the 11 times it by -2, so we get -22, two numbers that multiply to give you -22, two numbers, same two numbers, have to add up to give you -9. Go through your multiples of 22. Really, there's only the 1, actually 2, 1 and 22, and 2 and 11. So in this case, the one that's going to work is going to be -11 and 2. -11 and 2. So decompose that middle term. So equals 11x squared. that middle term now becomes minus 11x plus 2x, and then minus 2. So notice how this 9 became this and this. And now do the process, factor or group these, pull out your GCF. So looking at the first one, the GCF here is 11x. So you're dividing each one of these by 11x. Oops, sorry, x. And when doing that, you're going to be left with x minus 1. Look at the second bracket. The GCF here is 2. So pull a positive 2 out, and you're going to be left with x minus 1. Those brackets are the same. You've done it correctly. So your final answer is everything on the outside as one of your factors, 11x plus 2, and then the common bracket, the x minus 1. There you go. Last one, 5x squared minus 8x minus 4. Okay, I'm gonna start sounding like a broken record, but take this 5, take this minus 4, minus 20. Two numbers that multiply to give you minus 20. Same two numbers have to add up to give you minus 8. Go through your multiples of 20. So in this case, this one might take you a little more time because there are multiples of 20. But the combination that will work in this case is going to be minus 10 and 2. Minus 10 and 2. So break down, decompose that middle term, 5x squared. So decompose this into minus 10x plus 2x. And please don't forget that this is still x, because the middle term has an x, right? You're not changing it, you're just breaking it into two parts. And then that minus 4 on the back. All right, group, factor by grouping. Look for your GCF in each bracket. So the GCF here is 5x. So pull a 5x out of the brackets. Pulling it out, you're factoring it out. So what does 5x squared factored by 5x leave you? Just x. Minus 10x factored by 5x becomes minus 2. Look at the second one. The GCF here is 2. So pull a 2, factor out a 2, and you're going to be left with x minus 2. So your final answer, everything on the outside, so the ones that are written in gold there, 5x plus 2, and then the common bracket, x minus 2. All right, good job. So lots of homework, just go through, do the practice, all right? It's just a pattern, a process you follow. If you have any questions, we'll take it up in class, all right? Bye for now.